This, I suppose, aptly named Big Fund 3, it certainly is ambitious. I suppose it needs to be, given that I think when we crunch the numbers, we've seen some $380 billion worth of commitments and pledges and earmarked funds by governments worldwide. Does this give China a significant leg up in terms of this tech supremacy war when there are such, restrictions in place?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how these government programs are rolling out in different countries. China, of course, has had a much more proactive industrial policy for many, many years, including in the semiconductor space. They have a program, Made in China 2025, which was aimed at helping them make significant advances in a number of different areas, including biotech and electric vehicles and semiconductors. In addition to that, one of the key questions, though, was how sustainable this was going to be given some of the economic problems in China. As you alluded to, this is the third fund that's aimed at making investments in the semiconductor area. With some of the economic challenges, including the housing crisis, it wasn't exactly clear whether they were going to be able to continue to fund very aggressively in the semiconductor space. So what we're hearing now is this new Big Fund 3, which is roughly $48 billion, has been raised. It is going to be doled out. This signals very clearly that for Xi Jinping's administration, semiconductors remain a very, very high priority. And that's partly because the U.S. has been getting increasingly restrictive in selling China the kinds of tools that they need to be able to develop the chip industry and also to be able to get their hands on advanced chips like the AI chips from NVIDIA that are used to train AI models, so important for things in the future.
Peter, we haven't always seen those big fund investments paying off in the past. There's been perhaps a bit of money being misspent. We saw the former boss as well of the big fund investigated for corruption and removed, of course, from his post. Do we understand how this money could be spent differently, or do you think that China's ironed out the issues that they've seen in the past?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The big funds in the past have had some problems, some challenges. Beijing has not seen the kind of progress in some of the key areas that they like within the semiconductor industry, despite much money being spent in many of these sectors. This is, again, a Beijing, a centralized fund. There's a lot of money being spent by the local governments, too, so there's a lot of money pouring into these areas. Where we've seen progress is really the older chip technologies, the legacy chip technologies. We're seeing a lot of fabs being built, a lot of progress being made within China to build that foundational layer. Also, the U.S. has not put restrictions on some of that older kind of equipment, the older chip technology. But at the most cutting edge, it's been a challenge for China. You see, as we saw in the market yesterday after this news was announced, you see some of the chip makers in China, including SMIC and Huahong, make some pretty significant increases in their share prices. There's a positive reaction there because investors anticipate that Beijing is going to back these companies, and they want to try to develop some of these more advanced technologies, especially 7 nanometer, 5 nanometer, maybe 3 nanometer and 2 nanometer chips, the kind of chips that China no longer can buy from the United States in many different cases, including the NVIDIA chips that we're talking about. NVIDIA has essentially a monopoly on some of those chips that are needed to train the most advanced artificial intelligence models that are out there. So that's a key area where they want to make some breakthroughs in Beijing.